This video is going to be a look at two of the top 5 rookies drafted in the NFL draft, Kayvon Thibodeaux and AIDAN HUTCHINSON, two edge players, although they have different physical attributes and different assignments. To be honest with you, this is going to be an attempt to compare their impact. Really only going to focus on Week 10 film, to be honest with you, ahead of their Week 11 matchup in New York. The Lions will go for their third win in a row, and the Giants are going to try to move to 8-2. Of course, all 7 of the Giants' wins have been inside of a touchdown, I believe, in terms of the final differential. There's 2 or 3 games out there, even 2 games recently that they could have lost, but they continue to play tough and get turnovers in the fourth quarter, hold people off defensively. Kayvon Thibodeaux is a part of that. I know the stats don't look great. The main thing that people talk about, unfortunately, in some cases the only thing, is sacks with edge rushers. I got news for you. A lot of the rookies are struggling in that regard. The number 1 pick, Trayvon Walker, 2.5 sacks through 9 games. Kayvon Thibodeaux has only played 7 games, 1 sack. AIDAN HUTCHINSON is leading all rookies with 5.5 sacks. The next guys, in terms of sacks for rookies, one of them's a safety. It's Jaquan Brisker. He's playing out of his mind. 3 sacks and interceptions, 60-plus tackles in 10 games, playing 100% of the snaps for the Bears defense. Drake Jackson, a later round pick, big, huge D-end for the 49ers, 3 sacks. Sam Williams, edge rusher out of the SEC, playing for Dallas, he also has 3 sacks. Jermaine Johnson, 2.5. It's not like there's many edge rushers. We're halfway through the season, guys. Let's just double them. Let's just, for all intents and purposes, double them. But a lot of these guys have played 10 games. Brisker, Trayvon Walker, Boy Mafe, who has 2 sacks. Logan Hall, 2 sacks. Kingsley Enagbare, 2 sacks. Myjai Sanders out of Cincinnati, 2 sacks. Those guys have all played 10 games. Actually, Myjai Sanders has only played 6. My apologies. Most of those guys have played 9 or 10 games. So even doubling their stats is not realistic. But let's go ahead and double it. Drake Jackson, Jaquan Brisker, Sam Williams end up with 6. The number 1 pick in the draft, Trayvon Walker, only ends up with 5. Kayvon Thibodeaux only ends up with 2. Really makes AIDAN HUTCHINSON's 5.5, which if you doubled it would be 11, if I did my math right, makes that seem pretty impressive. Along with 5.5 sacks, now AIDAN HUTCHINSON is playing damn near every snap, 95% of the snaps. There's one game he's below 80% of the snaps. He had a 3-sack game against Washington in Week 2. They did a lot of stunts, to be honest with you, and one of his sacks was a little bit of a delayed sack, let's put it that way. He had a sack and a half against Dallas in a loss in Week 7. He had a sack this past week against the Bears. We're going to go over his film first, and I did not think he played great early in the game, to be honest with you. I did a huge video 4 weeks ago on the best rookie edge rushers in the NFL. Got some negative feedback about the portion that was dedicated to AIDAN HUTCHINSON. I see him doing some good things. I mean, are there times where he loses? Of course, absolutely. Like I said, he's playing 95% of the snaps. But overall for the year, 28 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 10 QB hits on top of the 5.5 sacks. Oh, by the way, he had an interception in Week 9 when they beat the Packers. They're going for the 3rd straight win in New York. I think it's entirely possible that they can beat the Giants. Call me crazy. Thibodeaux only has 1 sack. Played 7 games, 18 tackles, but that 1 sack was huge. It was a forced fumble against Lamar Jackson to basically clinch the game for the Giants and their comeback win in Week 6, allowing them to get to, I think, 5-1. They're now 8-2, I believe. 7-2, excuse me. Winning a ton of close games. Their only 2 losses was a 7-point loss to the Cowboys and a 14-point loss at Seattle. So even though they have a bunch of close wins, they could very easily only have 1 loss. I understand that Thibodeaux is not getting a ton of sacks, only has 1 through 7 games. So there's going to be, boo birds in the comment section that are going to basically make it seem like only sacks count. And I just don't believe that that's all that counts. So let's look at some of the film from Week 10 only. And this is the Lions' 31-30 win over the Bears. Generally, we're going to spot shadow either Hutchinson or Thibodeaux. In this case, we're focusing on Hutchinson first. It's a screen to the tight end. A great job by Jeff Okudah, on the pick 6. Don't get me wrong. But I think AIDAN HUTCHINSON deserves credit here too. Watch as he takes on this block by the tight end. First of all, number 1 disappears. That's the number 1 receiver right there. He disappears. He goes under. So the corner just levels off. The safety looks for work from the other side. To me, this play is successful as a screen if AIDAN HUTCHINSON just works upfield and goes after the quarterback. But he's got awareness. Like I said, he's played a lot of reps so far in the NFL. Now, you do have two guys right on top of Justin Fields. So maybe at some point, you want to see him throw the ball away, but he doesn't want to take an intentional grounding. So he wants to try to at least let his team live to play another down. To me, this ball was thrown high because of AIDAN HUTCHINSON and how he played it and the awareness level and his reaction. So we're going to get to the end zone angle. You can see it. Again, on the left side, taking on the tight end. I can never say that guy's name. Komet, I think. Taking on the tight end, recognizes that he's being left alone and gets in between the quarterback and the tight end. To me, he has a direct impact on how that ball was thrown. Now, this is not really fitting in the progression of the plays. I'm generally going to go through these plays from start to finish. Okay, so there's going to be a progression. And to be honest with you, early in the game, I did not think Hutchinson was playing that well. This is a zone read. He's on the opposite side of the formation. The reason I'm showing you this is a lot of the runs that Fields had through the first 2.5 quarters was away from AIDAN HUTCHINSON. Now, I'm not saying that it was by design, but if you were to look at it with a little bit of a skeptical eye, you would say they did not run to his side that often. Here he is, another zone read concept. I think this is a called give. They just telling him to give it, him being Justin Fields. It's a 3rd and 14, so they're just trying to get in field goal range on the first possession. All right, end zone angle, same play. Hutchinson here. Tight end's going to try to dig him out. Hutchinson's going to rip with the inside arm, keep his left arm free because that's the gap. That's where he's trying to fight to the inside gap, and he does make the tackle. Some people would say, oh, he's getting pushed around. He's not engaging here. He's engaging with one arm and trying to make the tackle with one arm, which he does successfully. He got credit for the tackle. Like I said, it was 3rd and 14, a called give. I think the Bears were just settling for a field goal at that point. All right, Hutchinson, to me, his pass rush is often curtailed because he's playing in a 6 technique. Six technique is head up on a tight end. Usually he's told, get hands on the tight end. Try not to let the tight end free release, impede his progress. In this case, you can see he's getting held up by a tight end and then a fullback, as well. So he's not getting involved with the rush at all. It's a sack for Okwara, if I can say that guy's name right. Second possession, same all 20. This is the same play, all 22 angle. The sack is going to be the edge rusher from the outside who was lined up over the Twins. I'm not saying that Hutchinson's playing well in the beginning. I'm not saying he's having much of an impact because he was not. In fact, I thought he asked out of this game early because he was tired on a particular play. This seemed to get him going. Second possession, 1st and goal from the 2, or 2nd and goal from the 2. Run play away from him, and he just chases down, tackle for loss. Now the safety plays it well also. Number 31 on the front side. Look at the burst from the backside, Hutchinson. Great play. You get the end zone angle, you'll see the safety as well. Actually, I didn't show you the end zone angle, my bad. Now, this is the very next play, and initially, he plays this exceptionally well. Now, I would not recommend him diving inside against the tackle. He's played this very well to this point. Tackle's going to step to him. He dives inside. I would not recommend that when you have an athlete the caliber of Justin Fields. But it works out because he's able to contain Fields. Contain means don't let him get to the outside. Fields is going to reverse to the other side of the field. And unfortunately, there's just a little bit of a lack of discipline here by Hutchinson. Fields breaks a tackle, reverses field. Touchdown. You do get the end zone angle of this play, and you get a little bit better sense of how well I think he plays it in the beginning, even though he dives in the B gap. But sometimes you call for this. If you think it's a base block, you do engage and then rip to the inside. I mean, I have seen him get held up by blockers before. I've seen it to where he has trouble getting off of blockers this season. This ain't one of them. He sheds that tackle with some ferocity and some tenacity. And then, unfortunately for him, after playing the first 1.75 seconds of the snap, great, gives up contain. As the game went on, I thought he played better, to be honest with you. This is a great hustle play. Middle screen, I think, to the tight end. And Hutchinson comes from all the way on the other side of the field to make the tackle. You can see he's dealing with the left tackle here. Screen to the tight end. And Hutchinson's the guy who comes in and makes first contact. Or first contact in terms of making a tackle. Still a 9 or 10 yard gain. Left-hand side of the defense. Started to see his impact more later in the game, especially against the run. He had 3 tackles against the run, by my count, that were on runs of 3 yards or less, which to me is successful when you hold a run play to 3 yards or less. There has been a lot of comments about him taking on tight ends. I've seen some reps where he's not physically dominating the tight ends, but this one is a good one. Condenses the tight end. See, he's a C-gap player if he's playing inside the tight end. In this case, he's a D-gap player. But what you want to do when you're playing D-gap, or any gap for that matter, an odd technique, is you want to be in your gap, which he is, and then you want to take the guy who's trying to base block you and condense that inside gap. Well, you can see the inside gap is huge right now. Well, he's got a guy who's filling 25, and he has walked that tight end down into the interior gap. Look where they make contact. Look where the tight end's foot is, maybe 2 yards from the inside of hash, maybe 2.5 yards. Look where it finishes up. He's got him damn near more than halfway towards the other hash. Yeah, there's been times where I've seen Aidan Hutchinson not physically dominate a tight end. In my opinion, this is a good rep. Same play, all 22 angle. I'm a fan of him, to be honest with you. Like I'll just say it. I would not have taken him or Trayvon Walker number 1 at that time. I thought, to me, Ahmad Gardner looked like the best player in the draft. I know you don't draft a corner number 1 when you have edge rushers of that caliber. I understand that. Just to me, he looked like the best player in the draft. I'm not sure that he'll end up being that. I'm just letting you know up front, he was not a guy that I would have taken with the number 1 pick. Engaging the wide receiver and then going to fold down inside. You will get the end zone angle view of this. And he'll be the guy to make first contact and get in on a tackle. 2 yard gain on 2nd and 7, I believe. End zone angle, same play. They're in their nickel front. Tight end and all the O-lines, all the offensive linemen are working away. Hutchinson gets involved. He became more active the more he played, and a lot of it was after asking to come out of the game when he looked like he was tired. In a 6 technique, again, head up on the tight end. It's a zone read, and he does contain Justin Fields. Now, you have a corner out here who's the force player. He's not the force player. The force player is the guy who's designed to force an outside run back to the inside. In my opinion, he plays it very well at first, and then he goes for this little fake right here. Fields is able to get outside for a little bit for a 5 yard gain, but Hutchinson is the guy who makes the tackle. When they ran that zone read away from him, it was way more successful. And I'm not a Lions analyst or a Bears analyst, so I can't quote numbers for you. I'm just saying I watched every single snap, and I have saved for you, I think, 17 of them here. When they ran zone read to the side opposite Hutchinson, it was a big gain. There was more space there. When they ran the zone read to his side, he was able to shut it down or at least close it down. It's a pretty good job here of an edge rush, to be honest with you. I mean, he's physically going after that right tackle, setting him back on his heels. The tackle tries to anchor, and as soon as he tries to anchor, that's when he sheds him. That's a nice job. We call it a jerk technique right here. Just pulling him. So you're pushing, driving him back as soon as he anchors, then you pull him, and then get the sack. Huge moment late in the game. Like I said, 5.5 sacks so far on the year. Can't do anything. It can't complain about those type of numbers, even though it is through 10 games. All right, I think he's in a spy mode here for real. I do. He's not committing to the rush, and you can see right now he's got an open lane to go. Now, in a moment, the 2 offensive linemen are going to get to him. Justin Fields is going to break a couple of tackles. Insanity almost ensues. Damn near breaks a 3rd tackle. A couple of guys finish him off. You're going to get the end zone angle. I really truly believe. I thought you got the end zone angle. My bad. I really truly believe you do, actually. Here it is. I actually believe he is in a spy here, and I think the coaches have identified that he's the one guy on the front who, if Fields tries to break outside, can run with him and at least be on the backside hip. I'm not saying he can run with him and beat him in the 40. That's not what I'm saying. But this is not a rush mode by AIDAN HUTCHINSON. It's damn near Super Saiyan mode by Justin Fields, breaking tackles. Go watch it one more time through. I think that he's playing far better than he gets credit for. I think there's moments in games where he loses, absolutely. I think there's moments in games where he is playing at the level of the draft pick that he was, the number 2 pick in the draft. And I think the coaches use him in a very intelligent way. Against Washington, from this alignment, they ran this stunt multiple times, and I think he got 2 sacks on that stunt right there. From a wide 3, and then stunting to the other side, while they had a pick, and I think there was even a second pick against Washington. I know I got a lot of lines drawn, so let's just draw one of them. I think it went like this, here, and then Hutchinson went around. So they're setting up the offensive line for the Bears to make them think that's coming. That's my point. And I think they got at least one spy here, and then this guy is taking the running back man-to-man. They don't want to let Fields get out because this is late in the game. And they end up getting a sack. I think that's that guy's second sack of the day. You can see how strong Fields is, how physically impressive he is. Let me know what you think of AIDAN HUTCHINSON and how he played in Week 10. Do I think he had 8 tackles. He had a sack. 8 tackles and a sack. I thought he played far better than people give him credit for over the course of the game. And I think that he shows you the physicality that he has against the tight end on 3 of the reps that I gave you here. One of them was against a receiver. A 4th one was against a receiver. So he has to win that battle. Let me know what you think of AIDAN HUTCHINSON's play in Week 10. How you think he compares to KAYVON THIBODEAUX. I think they're playing different techniques, and I intend to prove that to you with the next section of this video where I talk about KAYVON THIBODEAUX's performance in Week 10 against the Texans. All right, the second part of this video is going to be a look at some KAYVON THIBODEAUX film from Week 10. Giants got another close win to move to 7-2, I believe 7-2, and they have a chance to go 8-2 if they win their home game against the Lions. We talked about AIDAN HUTCHINSON's play from Week 10 and how I described him as getting better throughout the game. KAYVON THIBODEAUX is a different player. First of all, not as physically imposing as Hutchinson, who's like 6'7". Also, he's asked to drop out in pass coverage a lot more. When I say he, I mean KAYVON THIBODEAUX. Only has 1 sack, but that's not the reason that he only has 1 sack. There have been plenty of times where he's not winning in his pass rushes. I'll just go ahead and say it. Same thing applies to AIDAN HUTCHINSON, though. But the reasons are a little different. Oftentimes when there's 21 personnel or 22, Hutchinson is playing head up on a tight end. 6 technique, I said it in the first part of this video, really curtails his pass rush opportunities. He's got to deal with the tight end first, read the tight end, and then if he gets pass read, then rush the passer, possibly deal with the tight end and the running back, possibly deal with just the tackle. There's a lot more variables when you're playing to the tight end side as opposed to playing to the other side. KAYVON THIBODEAUX does a little bit of both, but he's more of a 3-4 outside linebacker. If you ask me, I would classify Hutchinson as a 4-3 D end, but athletically Hutchinson can do both. But stats-wise, the biggest impact that Thibodeaux has had, last week 4 tackles against Houston. We're going to show you some of them. He drops out in pass coverage a lot more as well. And look, just to be real, plays in Wink Martindale's system, and that is not a system that has historically been great for edge rushers developing a ton of sacks. Look at the top 3 guys in the NFL in sacks right now in 2022. Matthew Judon, Zadarius Smith, and Justin Houston. Well, Smith and Judon both played in Wink's system. Then they left the Ravens. And they've experienced more success in terms of getting to the quarterback after leaving our system. Justin Houston has 8.5 sacks this year. He had 5 last year in Wink's system. Am I blaming it all on Wink? No, I'm not. But there is something to be said. There is some reality for it, to be honest with you. And that's coming from a Ravens fan, a person who watches a lot of Ravens film and creates most of my content dealing with the Ravens. So let's get to the film from Week 10. We're going to be in a B-gap rush from Thibodeaux. And I think I show you the end zone angle of this one. It's a split sack between a D tackle and a guy who's blitzing off the edge. And this is just part of the structure, part of the system. That sometimes Thibodeaux is able to rush off the edge, and sometimes he's asked to execute a stunt like this one, which allows a DB to get free off the edge, I think Pinnock, and then he splits the sack with Lawrence. So that's just a system that he plays in. Is it designed to intentionally hold down an edge rusher's sacks? Well, no, I don't think it is. But sometimes you have situations like this. It's a three-step concept. This is a 3rd and 10 on the 3rd drive of the game for the Texans. Thibodeaux's getting jacked up a little bit. Don't get me wrong. Right tackle's just long-arming him with the right arm. He's got it up under his neck, if you ask me. It looks like it could be a situation where they might call it here, but we don't see the view from the other side to know if there's contact being made, with the face mask. But the ball's out quick either way. No matter whether Kayvon Thibodeaux wins or loses the rep, he's not going to get there in terms of getting to the quarterback when the ball's out that fast. 5th drive, and you see a lot of this when you watch the Giants film. And the Ravens played them in Week 6, so I watched a lot of film prior to the game, and then during the game, obviously, where the Giants came back to win. He drops out in coverage often to the boundary here. Ball's out to the other side. No opportunity for him to make a play because he's not targeted, number one. No opportunity for him to get a sack because he's dropping out in coverage. And I'm going to be honest with you, one of the things I saw in the pre-draft process for Thibodeaux that I think still applies, he's excellent dropping out in coverage. Sometimes it's to the boundary, sometimes it's not. This is a run play on the 6th possession. It's a 3rd and 4. You got Rex Burkhead, who's still around. And it's like Kayvon Thibodeaux right now exists outside of the blocking scheme because on this 3rd and 4, he's unblocked. Completely unblocked. Off the edge, makes a tackle, along with, I think, a D tackle who folded over the top. Hold Burkhead to a 2-yard gain. I think force a punt. So he's having an impact. There's plenty of times where he makes plays. Same play, all 22 angle, by the way. I think the system that they're in right now with the Giants has so many good players that Kayvon Thibodeaux isn't going to have too many 8-10 tackle games. The problem is, in trying to equate his pass rush abilities with AIDAN HUTCHINSON right now is the numbers just aren't there in the NFL. They're just not. 5.5 sacks so far for AIDAN HUTCHINSON, and he gets criticized for his pass rush skills, all right, for real. And a lot of that is from Lions fans who probably watch a whole lot more, Lions film than I do, obviously. So some of that may be warranted. And I have admitted in the first half of this video, there's plenty of times where I thought Hutchinson was losing. I don't think it means that either one of these guys can't be used. For real, the rookie edge rushers are not tearing it up. I addressed that earlier when I talked about Trayvon Walker has 2.5 sacks. Drake Jackson, Jaquan Brisker, they're tied with three sacks apiece behind AIDAN HUTCHINSON in terms of rookie sack numbers. Thibodeaux only having 1. Is it a concern if you're a Giants fan? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it is. I think it's entirely possible the guy gets 6 or 7 sacks the rest of the year. Because sometimes a guy gets a sack. In this case, Jahai Ward, way less athletic than Kayvon Thibodeaux, way less capable in terms of redirecting. But there's a fumble. Mills elects to scramble outside to the right-hand side of the pocket, left-hand side of the defense, and Jahai Ward is in position. This is going to be a really nice play, if you ask me. 12 personnel, 8th drive of the game under center for the Texans. And thank goodness he does make the tackle. It's a 5-yard gain, don't get me wrong. Brandon Cooks on the sweep. I love how he sheds the tight end. Let's talk about a couple of the fits, a couple of the other guys involved in this play right now. If Kayvon Thibodeaux isn't here to interrupt this play, look at what you have. You have the line working this way, and the running back, initially stepping that way as well. Could be zoned to that side. So Jalen Smith is working in that direction. Tight ends are both stepping to Thibodeaux, and one of them's going to work to the outside. So you got this DB working outside as well, opening up a huge lane in here. Well, it makes sense. It's a 4-man surface. Guard, tackle, tight end, tight end. Giants have tried to match it with 4 guys, right? D tackle, edge rusher, outside linebacker, Thibodeaux. So 2. And then inside linebacker and what looks like a strong safety rolled up in the box. But if Thibodeaux isn't the first guy to make a play here or make contact, who the hell does? Brandon Cooks is off and running, if you ask me. 5-yard gain, yeah. Doesn't look great in terms of down and distance. It sets up a 2nd and 5. But to me, it's an example that every play deserves context. And I think that applies to KAYVON Thibodeaux. I think it applies to AIDAN HUTCHINSON. Just because Thibodeaux only has 1 sack doesn't mean he's not playing well. 2nd and 12, this is going to be a touchdown pass on the 8th possession. And yeah, he's going against a tight end. I think that we'd like to see him rush a little more abruptly. I think he's winning. I think it's just taken too long for him to win within the confines of when this ball was thrown. Davis Mills getting the ball out quick. Great throw into the corner. Touchdown, taking advantage of the Giants' man-to-man defense. He's involved in the play here. It's a fumble. It's like the 2nd or 3rd time this has happened for the Giants. I'm not sure how it keeps happening for real. Happened against the Jaguars. Remember, the Jags finished the game on the 1. This is a fumble by Dameon Pierce, who's a stud and looks just a little indecisive here about where to go. Kind of shocked that he ended up fumbling. I don't think fumbling is, something he does often. But getting back to my point about turnovers with their backs to the end zone, the Jags finished the game on the 1. The Giants made the play to finish the game. Good for them. Now, you can see Thibodeaux is doing what he wants with his tight end. And then I think it's Lawrence comes in. I think that's Lawrence. Forces the fumble. Thibodeaux is involved. The Jags, finished the game on the 1. The Giants made a tackle. Give them credit. Earlier in the game, the running back had fumbled going in for a touchdown. And so this is now the 3rd time that you've got either a turnover with their back to the end zone or, a tackle on the 1-yard line. It's entirely possible this Giants team could have 2 more losses. I'm not trying to hate. I'm just saying with the amount of close wins that they've had, those could have very easily been 2 more losses. They could have 4 losses instead of 2. If you're a Lions fan going in there, you should expect a tough team. You should also expect a close game. And regardless of whether AIDAN HUTCHINSON or KAYVON Thibodeaux plays better, me personally, I like both of them. I wouldn't have a problem if my team drafted either one of them. Now, to be honest with you, I said it earlier, I wouldn't want to draft either one of them number 1 at the time of the draft. Let me rephrase that. At the time of the draft. But look, that's hindsight. We all get to, in a redraft, we all recognize there's a dozen players that will be drafted. Jaquan Brisker will be a top 15 pick. I mean, for real, he just would. Right? So many other rookies will be drafted higher. It's not even funny. AIDAN HUTCHINSON would still be one of them. He'd still be a top 5 pick. Trayvon Walker would still be a top 5 pick. Both of those guys are studs. I think KAYVON Thibodeaux has a high ceiling, and it wouldn't surprise me if he turns in a 3-sack game at one point in time, just because of how talented he is. He's being asked to do a lot in terms of pass coverage. In my opinion, in terms of stunts, he's being asked to do a lot. Hutchinson had benefited from some stunts in the Week 2 performance against Washington when he had 3 sacks. His pass rush options or pass rush numbers, in my opinion, are impacted by lining up against the tight end in a 6 technique so often and having to read the tight end steps, angle, and release before trying to rush the passer. To me, it just says that both of these guys are unselfish, which is a good thing. I think they're both great players, got great talent. I think to compare them directly and try to pick a guy who's better is, A, it's unfair, and B, it would, if I was to do that, it would be a lack of awareness by me in terms of or lack of understanding that they are playing different positions and they have different roles and responsibilities. In a perfect world, you'd want both of them. AIDAN HUTCHINSON to the tight end side and KAYVON Thibodeaux to the weak side. Let me know what you think of my video here, trying to break down and evaluate their play in Week 10 in terms of preparing or previewing the Lions' visit to New York in Week 11. Appreciate you guys' time.